Hey everyone, it's that guy over there bringing you another bit of Tyranid content. I'm calling this Army Focused Tyranids faction rundown before 7th edition hits. I saw the Sustainable Center do uh, a faction focus on Empire, so that's what made me think of it. And I'm really just trying to keep a regular flow stream of content coming up on the channel. So, anyway, hopefully you guys get something out of this. Obviously, you can skip around depending on what you're looking for. But yeah, until then, I'm just going to be talking about Tyranids. So let's give you a little bit of a background. It's the history of the Codex. Um, well, this just to keep it some in mind. This is from my memory. This isn't like it's supposed to be a 100% empirically true thing. But I'm just kind of giving you a history of where Tyranid players are coming from. Uh, so when Tyranids first came out, their first codex, everybody was wacky, pink and blue colors, and everything. The Termagant stayed pretty much the same, but everything looked all weird. Like the warriors had like buck teeth, and they looked like rats or beavers or whatever. It was kind of a strange place, and this is after Space Hulk and where the Gene Stealers came and the Terminators went on these Space Hulks to fight the Gene Stealers. They kind of got wrapped up into the Tyranids as the vanguard creatures for this Tyranid fleet that was coming into the humans galaxy, the Segmentum Solar or whatever they call it. So back then it was like you couldn't shoot over interposing units. So I guess everyone was lining up. This is before I was playing, but everybody was lining up these Termagant screens, and you couldn't shoot over them. So then, by the time you killed the Termagants, then the big stuff was in your lines, and everything was dying. So third edition came out with shoot the big ones, which meant you didn't have to. And I think with the edition change, you had to take a leadership role not to shoot at the closest thing. Can you imagine if that was now like the leadership 8 Tau having to make a leadership check not to shoot at the closest thing to represent, the panic battle or whatever. So, but Tyranids, you just ignored that rule. You would just, shoot. Obviously, you could shoot whatever you wanted, and this was huge because now everybody was just picking off your synapse creatures, and that's really when the synapse thing kind of started to be a Achilles heel. Um, and I can't remember. I put it in the fourth edition, but at one point, Eternal Warrior came out from the Tyranid Warriors. Okay, so Synapse. Back then, all I had was Tyranid Warriors, but the Synapse creatures gave Eternal Warrior to everybody within Synapse. I can't remember if that went away or third or fourth or maybe even fifth, but I definitely remember that. Um, and I don't think I understood really what that meant at the time because I was just a kid playing, but um, I didn't realize how much I was going to miss it in the future. Fourth edition, that was the Nidzilla, the Carnifexes. You could take, as long as they were less than 115 points, you could take them in your elite section. So then you had a whole bunch of Carnifexes because toughness 6 was kind of a big deal back then. And yeah, can you imagine that it was possible for Carnifexes to be less than 115 points? Actually, they came 80 points stock, and then if you gave them like Twin Link Devourers, which had living ammunition, so you got to reroll to wound and to hit. And I think if you made them Blisk Seal 3, because they started out Blisk Seal 2, that build was 113 points. And then you could obviously take them as elites. Yeah, so we've come up, that current build now is like 150 points. Just to, and you could do things like give them a 2+ armor save, toughness 7. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then in fifth edition, that's when everyone, because Tyranids were at one time the best army. Like they were winning all kinds of tournaments, and I don't want to say the best army, but they were winning all kinds of events, and Nidzilla was the list to play. And now the fifth edition codex came out, and everybody's like, "What is this?" This is the really kind of everybody took a step back when they saw the fifth edition codex. And while that was really the edition that I came into my own with the Tyranids, they really kind of took a hit, lost a lot of customizability, which I thought I was okay with because especially when I was like 11 playing like third edition, it was so easy for me to cheat accidentally by because it was like you could give them all these upgrades, but they all had, I mean, they had asterisks, double asterisks, triple asterisks, and all these notes at the bottom. You know, if you take the if you took like the bioplasma, you couldn't take any other mouth upgrades because their mouth was already the bioplasma mouth or whatever. So there was a lot of notes, and like if you gave them a 2+ armor save, they couldn't have wings, and you didn't. You could easily cheat, and even though I didn't mean to, I'm sure that there was a lot of games where I was walking around with something I shouldn't have, just because it was there was probably 20 options for every monster creature, and they all had multiple asterisks next to them as far as the notes at the bottom. So fifth edition lost a lot of customizability. They lost the Eternal Warrior. Missile spam was big at the time, so anything toughness 4 was just dying. You couldn't give anything really 2+ armor saves, except for your Hive Tyrants, and the Tyrant effects obviously just came with it. But it was a big shift from what people thought Tyranids were. A lot of things, because Tyranids actually got, and it was a big hyped up release because they thought they were going to change the meta. You know that things were going to be deep striking in and mycetic spore pods, and it was just kind of it didn't live up to the hype, so it quickly dropped off in the vehicle spam of 5th edition. So so that's where I kind of grew up with Tyranids. And the current book, now here's some of the themes in the current book. They have really jumped on the idea that they're not of this universe. They're the only not human looking book. Like, you know, they have 6 legs instead of 4. Everything else is humanoid, vaguely humanoid, like Necrons, Orcs, Eldar, everything. I guess Chaos isn't so much, and Demons, but they all have 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Well, for the most part for Chaos Demons, but Tyranids are not humanoid at all. So they really hit hard on that as far as not allowing them to use book special powers, because again, they're not using the warp. You know, they're using the synapse, the hive mind. That's where their power comes from. That's why they blot out the warp. The shadow and the warp is because they are the antithesis of the warp. The hive mind is so powerful it blots out the warp, which I think could have come out better in the book. They could have said something like, you know, you're not using warp powers, but you're using the hive mind or whatever, but it just automatically goes off. You can't deny the witch hit because it's not a warp power. You don't perils of the warp because it's not. They could have really played that, or if they gave some negative to demon models because it was like blotting out their source of their existence. You know, that they could have really done something with that, but it really just it came with a lot of negatives, but not really a lot of positives, other than Shadow and the Warp. They don't have independent characters. They have 1. It's the Tyranid Prime. I'll talk about the things we lost, but the Parasite Mortrex was the other one from the first book. But and I guess Hive Tyrants can join Hive Guard or Tyrant Guard, but there's really no way to hide your Synapse creatures. They're pretty much big things that stand out in the open, which really hurts. Right now we're formation heavy. We're really the only book that uses. We have a ton of formations, and tournament organizers for the most part seem so sympathetic to the Tyranid book that they will allow you to use formations. Just the Tyranids though, because they can't ally with anyone. That's another thing, you can't ally with anyone. So they really don't play a lot of the rules of Warhammer. They don't have vehicles. There's a lot of things that they don't have. Synapse is huge deal. Before, like in 5th edition, it was like, oh, my guys aren't in Synapse, that's fine. Uh, I can just, um, if I fail, I'll have to, what did they do? They didn't move, but in the shooting phase, they'd have to run towards the closest piece of terrain. But if they were already in terrain, they could shoot at the closest enemy for anything that lurked, but anything that fed, it got when 6th edition came out, got rage, so it got +1 attack when it charged. So yeah, like Raveners, just go ahead and put them outside of Synapse range because you wanted that +1 attack. So Synapse was not a big deal. Now Synapse is a huge deal. If you're not in Synapse range, you're either going to be eating yourself, you're going to be running away, you're going to pin yourself. Yeah, if you roll 6, usually you get some good things, but it's not. It's hard. You kind of have to build a list and really take Synapse into consideration. And Psychic defense, we're the only army other than Space Wolves, I believe, that has any sort of psychic defense anymore, as far as like preventing you from blessing yourself and stuff like that. Everybody can deny the witch, but Tyranids can actually like interrupt your ability to cast powers. So, which is kind of interesting because before everybody had psychic hoods and they could just cancel your powers on a 4+ or 3+ for one of the lone wolf or the space wolf characters, Najal or whatever. And yeah, it's kind of interesting how we've flipped in this new book. All right, what we lost, Doom and Malatai. He used to suck. If you were within 6 inches of him, you had to take a leadership test. It's kind of like not Spirit Leech, the Primaris power of the telekinesis, Psychic Shriek, where you roll 3d6, subtract your leadership. That's how many wounds you take. Except he would actually gain those wounds, and then his strength was equal to his wounds. So once he was up with 10 wounds, he was strength 10, running around, and you could put him in a pod. We lost my Psychic Spores, by the way. And he was really cool. I used to tie up enemy units with gargoyles and float them around on the outside and just suck him up. He was really powerful. You saw him in every list. He was 90 points. He was amazing. He was a zoanthrope, essentially. The Parasite Mortrex, I really miss him. In this current edition, especially with Tyranid Primes doubling or 50% more in cost. They went from 80 to 120. I really miss him. I would have put him with all my gargoyle flocks to fly around because he's the only independent character we had with wings. The only jump infantry we had in the HQ other than the Flying Hive Tyrant. And I definitely missed that. If Tyranid Primes could get wings, I would give it to them. And then they would fly around with gargoyles. I really missed the Parasite. Marl Gene Stealers, they were pretty cool. They would pop out terrain and then they could assault something the turn they came in. They're getting away from the assault the turn you come in, so oh well. And they had a 4+ armor save, whereas Gene Stealers have a 5+. I miss those guys too. Cheap rerolls. Scything Talons used to let us reroll once to hit, and we had all of our upgrades were cheap. 1 point for Dream Glance, 1 point for Toxin Sacks. Missed that. With Biomancy, we could have Toughness 9 monsters creatures. Biomancy was really good for us, and then Reserve Roll Control. That was we could easily have a 2+ reserve roll with Hive Commanders and things like that, but they took away the reserve roll control that we had. Hive Commander used to give +1 to reserves. Now it just lets you outflank a troop. They used to do that too, but they lost that. What we gained Skyblight. I guess that's the competitive Tyranids nowadays. That formation with Harpies, Hive Crones, and Gargoyles that you can't contest because they can hold objectives. We gained some monster creature variants. Honestly, I haven't had to buy any new models. I have a ton of Tyranid models, a ton, but I haven't bought any of the new kits. Like, I still haven't bought a Hive Crone. I still haven't bought the Haruspex or the Exocrine. I have some things that I could proxy because I had some unique conversions for that stuff. Because when 5th edition came out, there was no Tyrannifex, there was no, Trigon or Turbogons or anything like that. So I have some things I could convert or proxy as those, but Honestly, I haven't seen the need. It's interesting that it was like you didn't really have to buy anything new to play the new Tyranids, which is weird to me. Um, Warlord traits, we got a Warlord trait table, which are pretty. They, they don't. They're not very good. Honestly, you use the main rulebook ones. They're probably a little bit better. And infiltrate, we gained a lot of infiltrators. Before it was gene stealers, but now lictors can infiltrate. Um, yeah, maybe it's just the gene stealers. I don't know, or the lictors. I was a huge fan of lictors, and now I think they're even better. Uh, infiltrating lictors. What that means is that um, you can use them as like board presence the first couple of turns if you're trying to do some mass deep strike list. I really like lictors. I like them a lot, especially the Death Leaper. I used to use them all the time in 5th edition. Now in 6th, he's even better and cheaper. Well, actually, yeah, I'll talk about him later. Army themes. We got Synapse. You know, the idea that you can hold down and have fearless troops. For the longest time, I didn't know how leadership checks worked in 40k because I just played Tyranids. So if you failed your morale and were falling back, I never had to deal with that. Hordes, we have 4-point infantry, which I believe is the cheapest in 40. Well, yeah, that we can take them in 30 gaunt broods or whatever, whereas other 4-point infantry like the acolytes and stuff, they just come in groups of 10. Monstrous creatures, we got a large variety. Pretty much everyone has some sort of monstrous creature now. It used to be Tyranids were the only ones in demons, but now everybody pretty much has a monstrous creature. But we have a lot. We can take monstrous creatures in every slot. If you wanted to, you could take 30 termagants and then the rest all monstrous creatures. If you wanted to. Infantry, beasts, flying monstrous creatures, that's all we have. We don't have vehicles. We don't have flyers. We just have those 3 types. Cheap. So I have cheap and expensive up there. Everything is really cheap to start out with, but all the upgrades are really expensive. Everything pretty much got cheaper, but the upgrades for them got more expensive. So on the whole, we actually got more expensive, but or we stayed the same. Like gargoyles for 8 points, you used to get both the upgrades and fly around with strength 4 poison attacks on the charge. Now we don't have that. Now we just, I think it's 10 points actually. Yeah, 10 points for that same thing. But they come with a weaker version of poison, so it kind of evens out. Yeah, the upgrades, just keep that in mind, is if you need a lot of something, just know that you're not going to put a bunch of upgrades on it because it's going to be too expensive. And then synergy, we did lose some synergy as far as Tervagons used to confer their upgrades to the gaunts around them. They used to give them counterattack at a leadership 10. So it was that, and the Venom Thropes used to give guys 5+ cover and defensive grenades, and now they give them Shrouded, I guess, which is good, but you had to take Dangerous Terrain test before to assault things in the Venom Thropes cover. We lost a lot of synergy. Everything used to be within 6 inches of each other. Now that's not as important, but synergy is definitely something that you have to take into consideration when you're making your list. So here we got the deployment themes. We got the herd mentality. That's where I was talking everything within 6 inches of each other. Synapse, Tervagons giving gaunts the counterattack if they're within 6 inches. Casting your psychic powers on each other. You kind of make this. I like to think of it as the British and I don't know if it's Egypt or what I'm talking about, where they would have all the officers stand in the middle and they'd have like a little box of soldiers standing facing outwards, and the Arabs riding around in their horses. And that's what I always think of, is like you got to have that wall of the troopers around you with all the high value stuff on the inside to because that's your. I have bubble wrap down there. I'll call it bubble wrap. It keeps you from getting assaulted and keeps you controlling the way the fight's going. And people aren't assaulting you as much anymore in 6th edition, but um, yeah, the hedgerow idea where your gaunts give cover to the guys behind you, like the hive guard. The hive guard give cover to the monster creatures, and then your real big stuff gets covered from that. And now venom thropes, they give everybody shrouded. So you kind of have to really cluster up your force, probably in the middle of the table. You got min max. If you're doing a deep strike list, before you could just deep strike your whole army if you wanted to. Now you can't. You have to put half on the table to start out with. So what I'm doing a lot of times is I'm putting things like 3 solo lictors infiltrating out on the table. Rippers are actually really good for hiding behind the wall or hiding out of line of sight and trying to hold that comm relay because they're fearless. And even if they feed, they're probably not going to kill each other because they each have 3 wounds, and they're cheaper than gaunts actually, and easier to hide. So you kind of get this minimum presence on the table and this maximum force coming off. So Trigon Primes, Flying Hive Tyrants, everything deep striking in. Hidden. For whatever reason, Tyranids, their main battle strategy now seems to just be hide out of line of sight so not to get shot at. And all the battle reports you see, everyone hiding all their Tyranids behind it. And they're like, I'm glad we, like what are those guys called? The guys from Nevada, Los Angeles, Team Zero Comp. What was that? Frontline Games. Okay, their last tournament that they just ran, they put, well, this was a few months ago now, but they put a big line of sight blocking terrain right in the middle of every table. And, that when they're playing games up to that, the Tyranids would just hide behind that thing, and that's how they would win, is on the 5th turn. They'd run out and try to contest everything and then see how the game left. And I don't really like that kind of play style, so I don't play that way. But that seems to be the way to win with Tyranids. And then the No More Null Deployment. Remember Fritz talking about null deployment? Yeah, that's pretty much gone. It used to, with Mysa Explorers and outflanking, and you didn't have to start with anything on the table, and it took up 2 turns of your opponent shooting because you weren't even on the table. And yeah, null deployment's gone. You have to start with half your army on the table. But if you min-max, that might only be a couple of models, and then all of your other models are off the table. Of course, yeah. Yep, there are problems with that too, but you'll see. Weaknesses, the synaptic web. You don't have, like I mentioned earlier, there's no independent characters. Synapse creatures are, for the most part, solo, except for warriors and strikes. So they're this big thing standing out in the open, and they're a lot easier to kill than they look. Hive Tyrant is really only toughness 6, 4 wounds, 4 wounds, and 3+ armor save. Against Dark Eldar, that's like 4 Space Marines standing out in the open, and how easy is that to kill? So, yeah, Dark Eldar are tough. I've never beaten Dark Eldar because of that reason, because your toughness is, and I wrap this up in no defense, toughness doesn't matter anymore. Like, toughness 6 used to prevent, because there was a time when Dark Eldar just had splinter weapons. They were like strength 3. They were like the shuriken weapons, and then shuriken weapons didn't always rend like they do now. So they just had dark lances. That was their only special kind of weapon. So, yeah, I mean, toughness 6 just isn't as impressive anymore. When you've got Eldar Guardians that, if they roll 6 to wound, it just wounds you and ignores your armor. And then you got Dark Eldar warriors with poison weapons that wound you on a 4+. Even Tau, their strength 5 weapons, they wound you on a 5+. I mean, it used to be, when everybody was playing Space Marines, it was like, unless you had a really powerful weapon, you needed 6s to wound, and toughness 6 mattered, and it really doesn't anymore. Which is, it's kind of sad. It's kind of indicative of where the game is now. Like even D weapons, you don't even have to roll a wound. Um, yeah. If toughness 6 just granted you Eternal Warrior, that might matter. Um, so that way force weapons wouldn't get you, or D weapons. Well, D weapons don't instant death you anymore, but yeah, we don't really have that kind of defense that we used to. And even cover, everything ignores cover nowadays. Cheap and bad or good and expensive. So a 4-point gaunt is not going to really do anything for you, uh, especially if you don't have that synapse support to keep them fearless. So, however, like a 6-point gargoyle, there's really not a lot it's going to do for you. However, if you give it all the upgrades, now it's 10 points, so 300 points for 30 of them. And they can chase down wave serpents. Most of my wave serpent kills come from gargoyles, by the way. That strength 4 on the charge is huge. And poison, re-rolling your hits, really good. However, that's too expensive. So now you kind of have to find a happy ground in the middle. So for gargoyles, I just give them adrenal glands, just so that they can kill wave serpents and venoms, Eldar vehicles in general. And I forego the toxin sacks because they come with that poison. And if I'm trying to poison something like a Wraith Knight, honestly, I'm just trying to blind them and hold them up all game. Because before they used to just blend everything. They were like your blenders. They killed everything equally good. Wraith Knights, Dread Knights, Orc Boys, like everything just died. Now they're good against some things, and then they just are really good at holding things up forever. Because if you do the poison attack and you've got a poison 6+ weapon, but your strength 3 and their toughness 3, you still are poison 4+ with a reroll. Because unless you wound them better. So, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. And then we got to hit the synergy. We really don't have anything that synergizes anymore. Yeah, I mean, other than the Venom Thropes giving you Shrouded, there's really nothing. Which is sad. I really like that. I really liked it when, you got defensive grenades and dangerous train checks to charge you within the Venom Thrope range, and Tervagons gave, like if you paid 20 points and gave them their Toxin Sacs and Adrenal Glands, all the Gaunts within 6 inches got Toxin Sacs and Adrenal Glands, which was huge. And then they got a counterattack, so not only were you losing an attack for charging from the Venom Thropes, but they were gaining an attack with their Leadership 10 counterattack. And they had all the, it was really cool. You overlap all these bonuses. That's kind of gone now, and I miss that. Strength, cheap, fearless bodies. You can have hundreds of models on the table that are fearless, which, everybody's a big fan of cultists, the zombie cultists or whatever that are fearless. Fearless is good. It used to be, there was a time in 5th edition, I remember Nick Nanavanti, he was playing demons. I played him at a tournament, and I see his name sometimes. He's doing really well still. But he charged my whole army with his demons and killed all of the Gaunt squads and did like 20 Gaunt wounds. But because all my monstrous creatures were tied up in there, each monstrous creature took like 20 armor saves, because that's how Fearless used to work. Is it however much you lost by, that's how many wounds you took. And just completely obliterated me. And I remember joking that it was because they were so distraught, all the Gaunts had died, that they just fainted from the sheer horror of it all. But it's not, it really wasn't fun, and I'm glad they made the change, because that was so stupid, just seeing my whole army die because the Gaunts died. We're still customizable. We're still like the gargoyles. Those are my anti-wave serpent missiles now, and they're so you can really tailor like your hive tyrants with wings. You can really tailor the guys to what you need them to do. Cheap flying monster creatures, I don't. In my opinion, if you want to play flying monster creatures, you should play demons, because they're really good. But Tyranids are not a bad option if you want to go flying monster creatures. That seems to be the one that's winning the most. But again, I'm just watching Frontline Gaming's battle reports. I don't know if that's what they're really doing elsewhere. Formations. Uh, I think the formations are good. I really like the Death Leaper Assassin Brood. Death Leaper used to have like a page of rules. Now he's really toned down. Snapshots to hit are good, but he used to have like a 2+ cover save all the time back when it mattered. He used to be able to, like, at the end of the movement phase, go off the table, and then the next movement phase come anywhere on the table. You could use that to get line breaker. I always got line breaker with him, or you could contest objectives, or you could pop up next to um, Devastator squads or something out of line of sight. Of course, out of line of sight. Of course, it used to be impossible to charge him because within 12 inches you rolled 2 dice and took the lowest for. Rolled an additional dice and took the lowest for moving through cover. And the way 6th edition assault rules works now is you would charge, you use 2d6, take the lowest. Well, if you used his rule, you would roll another d6 and then take the lowest. So you were rolling the lowest of 3 dice, and you could never charge more than. I can't remember exactly how it wrote it. The way the wording worked out was that you would roll 3 dice and you would take the lowest, so you would never get more than 6 inches, and that was if you rolled all 6s. So he was impossible to charge, so he really could run around and do a lot. He was an elite. Now he's a headquarters, so I really like that too. Sometimes I use him. They still have Synapse, though. Or not Synapse, Instinctive Behavior. I don't know why I'm getting a tangent on Death Leaper, but I just think lictors shouldn't have instinctive behavior like the Gene Stealers don't. Because now you've got guys like operating behind enemy lines, assassinating people, but every once in a while they just run away for no reason. So, yeah. But yeah, the formations are really cool. They add a lot to the game, I think, and they make up for not having allies. The reason why I play Tyranids, they're a unique snowflake. I like being the only guy with Tyranids at the shop or at a tournament. I like it when people are like, I've never played Tyranids before. This should be fun. I really like that. I could play. I sold it, but I had the super build for Eldar. I had Eldar and Dark Eldar. I had Tau. I had all that stuff. But once the new books came out, I sold those off just because everybody wanted to play those. So, because it really means a lot to people when you bring a different army to a tournament or something that they don't get to play all the time. It makes for more enjoyable games. The models, Space Marines, every guy's a Space Marine of some sort. Tyranids, everybody's different. The Gaunts and the Gene Stealers and the monstrous creatures. I mean, it's really hard to proxy things. You can't say these guys are Stern Guard or these guys are Devastated. You can't do that like you can with Space Marines. Like, you could have a bunch of tactical squads and pull all the rocket launcher guys out and make a Devastator squad, and you can't do that with Tyranids at all because everything's different. But I like that everything looks different. Nowadays, if I lose a game or whatever, I'm just like, well, the next wave isn't, I don't think you're going to be able to hold off the next wave. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, sure, this was some skirmish between two big armies, but do you really think you can hold against another wave of Tyranids? Because Tyranids are always, there's more of them. So even if I lose, if I've taken out enough of them, in my mind I go, okay, well, the next wave would have broken through. So, because that's how Tyranids fight in the rules. So, I don't know. That's how I take enjoyments out of my defeats. Because I can just imagine the look in their eyes when they look over and coming over the hill is the next 2,000 point Tyranid army. So, yeah, there's always more of them. And then the Warhammer tactics, in real life, you wouldn't just line your guys up around your vehicles to prevent anyone from getting close to them, or you wouldn't order a squad to stand out in front of everyone to provide cover for the guys behind them. In real life, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't just sacrifice your men's life like that. Whereas Tyranids, yeah, that's how you do it. That's the reason why gargoyles are the way they are, is because they just absorb bullets. They talk about sitting in thousands of gaunts into positions just to use up everyone's ammo, and then the bigger stuff comes in. So the Warhammer tactics fit Tyranids. Whereas if I played Imperial Guard, I would feel bad because in real life I wouldn't order a squad of guys just to die, just to give cover to the guys behind them. The good guy here, the Flying Hive Tyrants. Now note this: there's certain army builds, so you can't really take these in every list. You have to put some thoughts behind it. I'll get to that eventually. But the Flying Hive Tyrants, the Death Leaper, the Tyranid Prime, those are probably the three best headquarters. Flying monstrous creatures are good. The Twinling Devourers, or I like to give the sword. What's the special sword called? Can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember what it is. There's artifact that's a sword, and it has you reroll the wound with it, and it inflicts instant death on a 6, and that's better than poison against like a Wraith Knight, because toughness 8, you're rerolling your 6, looking for 6s, and the 6s just kill him. So that's the. Sometimes I play around with giving him that, just to be my monster hunter. Death Leaper, he's just fun. Snapshots to shoot at him is really good. I like to, like if I take an infiltrating army or like the swarm lists, just to put them out there, to be threat overload. And then Tyranid Primes, the reason why you take Tyranid Prime is for the Norn Crown to put in a big blob of your little critters because 30 Termagants with a Tyranid Prime in it that's about the most survivable synapse we have. Sadly, I think, but no, that's the way it goes. In the elite, the lictors, I just really have a soft spot for lictors. I have 13 of them. Okay, sorry I had to take a little bit of a break there. Lictors, got 13 of them. One of them being Death Leaper, of course, but I really enjoy the lictors, especially now that they have infiltrate, especially now that they have fear, especially now that they have stealth. Maybe they had stealth before, I don't know. Especially now that they're not competing for Hive Guard. Before 9 Hive Guard, it was like 9 Hive Guard, that was your list every single time. Unless you were taking, what was his name? The Doom Mountai. But yeah, lictors. Strength 6, Initiative 6, they have frag grenades, they shoot. They don't rend anymore with their flesh hooks, but they used to rend with their Strength 6 flesh hooks. Back when they used to have to just appear on the table, they just appeared. I would pop up behind vehicles and wreck them all the time, and they're a lot of fun. They have hit and run, leadership 10, even though they do have instinctive behavior, but I don't know, they're fun. I really like the lictors, especially in the dodgy infiltrating lists I like to play now. Hive Guard actually got better. So before they used to be Ballistic Skill 4, but the only reason they would ignore cover as long as you weren't touching it. So like if you ran up and touched a wall and they were shooting over the wall, they didn't have to see you. They still don't have to see you, but you used to get cover saves. Now you just don't get cover saves at all. So it's actually, against targets in cover, is actually better. Because if you're in area terrain, you don't get that either. It actually works out to be more damage now. Now if the target's just out in the open, then yeah, Ballistic 4 was better. But I wouldn't give them the Haywire guns because Haywire doesn't ignore cover. And it makes them even more expensive. They did get more expensive, 5 points more each, but Haywire is pretty slick because you just roll and it does damage. Venomthrope, they are good in certain lists because they give Shrouded, and yeah, that's all they give anymore. They used to give a lot of things, but now they just give Shrouded, which is important. That means it's pretty easy for you to get 3+ cover saves, 2+ on the first turn. Yeah. Now everything ignores cover and line of sight, and but especially Eldar and Tau, but they're pretty good. Zoanthropes, I see a lot of people taking these as their synapse. Uh, 3 of them they're each 60 points, but you can hide them pretty easily, and they have 2 psychic powers. They automatically get one, but you could maybe get like a catalyst or whatever, or Dominion, and have a warp shot as well as something else utility wise. So that's pretty cool. Even just one guy has warp mastery level 2. So they're both pretty good. Troops, Termagants. Obviously, put a Tyranid Prime in them. If you take a big group of 30, I would say always put a Tyranid Prime with them. Like if you take a Turbogon, that's your one. Make sure he's like on the other side of the table, and then on the other side you got the Tyranid Prime and the 30 Gaunts that make that Turbogon a troop. Turbogons you really don't want around your Turbogons anymore. Before you want them right in there next to your Turbogons, and now you don't. Gene Stealers. I really like Gene Stealers. I feel like they're the most cost-efficient troop choices now. Well, let me take that back. So this is for taking down vehicles. For 14 points, you get 3 attacks on the charge that are just natively strength 4, and they rend. So that means they can fight everything. They can fight a Wraith Knight. If they roll a 6, they'll just wound him. They can take down armor, because if they roll a 6, they don't glance, they actually penetrate, and they can do damage that way. So I like Gene Stealers. They're just really expensive. You just have to counterbalance that with Gargoyles. So Gargoyles and Gene Stealers are what I build a lot of my swarm lists around anymore. Tyranid Warriors in the like flying monsters creature lists, you want something that can just sit in the backfield and be fine by itself. Gene Stealers and Tyranid Warriors are the only troop choices that don't need anything else to exist. They're not affected by instinctive behavior. They're leadership 10 or fearless. Tyranid Warriors can take guns. They can sit in the back and shoot their Barb Stranglers or whatever, and hold an objective. In my dodgy lists, I call them that because there's not a lot on the table. There's infiltrators and outflankers and stuff that Gene Stealers are really key for infiltrating and taking objectives, or outflanking and taking objectives. So if you put Hive Commander on your Flyrants, you can infiltrate your warriors also, because they're or you can outflank them because they're troop choices. And then the Turbogons, they're nice because they give you another roll on the psychic power chart. If you could just pick your powers, that'd be nice, but they don't. You have to roll. So you want Catalyst. Catalyst is the one you want. Yeah. All right, fast attack. Hive Crones, people are taking those. The Strength 8 Vector Strikes is really good. The Haywire Missiles are really good. The Strength 6 AP4 Flamer is really good. They die very quickly if they get grounded, though. They're only 4+ armor and they're toughness 5, but I see a lot of people taking those. I haven't bought any yet, but yeah. Shrikes, I think Shrikes are a good option. You want to give them Rending Claws, and they're like flying Gene Stealers, but they can fly behind your Gargoyles and give Synapse for a little bit until everything else gets on the table or whatever. I think that's the way to run Shrikes. I used to always run 6 with Lash Whip, Bone Sword, Toxin Sacs, and Adrenal Glands. Maybe not Adrenal Glands, they were just Toxin Sacs, but they were like 50 points each. Always used to run them behind 3 Trigons for cover, and it was a lot of fun. If people at my New York store just learned to fear the Tyranids, Shrikes. It was pretty funny. I especially back when it was Space Marines, the Hive Guard would get all the Space Marines out of their vehicle, and then they would just die to the Shrikes. The Shrikes would cleave through them no problem. So, and if with poison, this was back when Mephiston was really big. They would make him initiative 1 with their lash whips, and then just kill him with their bone swords because they used to ignore armor saves. Now they're specifically AP3. Before they just ignored armor saves, and they reroll 1s to hit from Sighting Talons and reroll wounds, and they're really nice. Now taken a substantive hit, and Lashwood Bone Sword's got a little bit more expensive. But um, yeah, Rending Claws, that's what I do now. Gargoyles, just adrenal glands. Toxin sacs are unneeded, I think, because they come with poison natively. But I always take those. 25 is just about right. 30 is, well, if you're running multiple units of them, like 2 units of 25. 20 is too small. 30 is too many points in one thing, and you just get this big ball of gargoyles that, like, if a dreadnought gets into them, there's this big mass of gargoyles, and 25 is just about right. That's what I would do. Plus, it's an even 200 points, I think, if you make them each 8 points times 25. Yeah, that's 200 points actually, even. So, I don't know. I like that. I like symmetry. All right, heavy support. I've got Biovores. Biovores they got a lot cheaper. They're 120 points now for 3 of them. They used to be 135, but they're good. If they miss, now those spore mines can assault in the assault phase and blow up again. So Biovores pretty much always hit. They're really good at taking out things like 60 Tau warriors behind a Aegis defense line. I almost feel like in a take all comers list you need to take Biovores. Just in the off chance that you come across a lot of aspect warriors, or you come across a lot of Tau fire warriors. There was a guy at my shop that was trying to do that, like have so many, and the Biovores every time. Orc boys, anything Imperial Guard infantry blobs. Biovores are your crowd control. They're so good. Molochs are good just for threat overload. If they hit, they do really well, but if they scatter off, then they can't do anything actually. So they're just they're 140 points for a 6 wound toughness 6 monster. That's how you need to look at them. Yes, they have a strength 6 AP2 template that hits multiple times and whatever, but and mishapping isn't always bad, because if you go back in ongoing reserves now, you can't get shot. But yeah, they're not as good as they look on paper. The Trigon Prime, he's good for my deep striking list. They increased his range to 18 inches, and he gets 12 strength 5 shots, which if you shoot in the rear of a vehicle is going to do well. And they don't mishap. They're like drop pods. They avoid things that would make them mishap, except for the edge of the table, obviously. So that's what I would use Trigon Primes for. Plus they have Shadow in the Warp, and they're synapse creatures and all that. Tyrannid adrenal glands, if you can get Onslaught, means that you can move up 6. Adrenal glands give you fleet, which is something they didn't used to do, but it gives you fleet. So now if you cast Onslaught, move 6 inches, fleet ahead, so you can roll 6 and with a reroll. You can get up to 12 inches down the table, and then you have a 12-inch template, the Torrent template. So you're placing a template in your opponent's deployment zone. They're strength 6 AP4. So I don't know. I think that's something worth taking into consideration. Plus they have a 2+ armor save. Nothing else in the book is going to have that, except if you buy the Ymarl effect for your one of your headquarters choices, or your Trigon Prime, because they can take it too. Okay, what else would you take? Comm Relay. I take those in my deep strike lists. Anything with reserve manipulation, you really need that, especially now that you can't add to your reserve rolls. Lictors used to give you +1 to your reserve rolls, believe it or not, but they had to be on the table, and since they had to deep strike, they wouldn't be on the table until everything was on anyway. So yeah. Firestorm Redoubt, I really like that. I think they've changed it now where more than just 2 models. It's not just 1 firing point. I think they fact it. I can't remember, but 1 firing point, only 2 models can shoot out of. So if you put 2 Biovores in there, they can both shoot out of the Firestorm Redoubt 48 inches away, and then they're hidden inside of a building. So Buildings are kind of death for the unit inside if they get penetrated, though. Like 2d6 strength 6 hits, it's ridiculous. But I would hide Tyranid Prime in there also to give extended with the Norn Crown or whatever to get that ridiculously huge Synapse Bubble. You can do that with a Bastion also. And then you can hide stuff behind the Bastion a little bit easier than the Firestorm Redoubt. I do put my objective behind the Firestorm Redoubt. And it's interesting with the Redoubt because it's got the anti-aircraft guns. I really didn't have to take any flying monsters creatures. In 5th, I used to always just run the Swarm Lord. And when the Firestorm Redoubt came out, I put that in there. But I've seen people, their whole battle plan seems to be like maneuver on the Firestorm Redoubt and take that out, and they kind of ignore the rest of my stuff. So it's weird. People aren't used to playing against Tyranids that have like las cannons, which is cool. And they fire themselves, so if they eventually fact it, so Tyranids can't use the Aegis defense line or whatever, then the las cannons shoot themselves. Yeah, Bastions with a zone throat behind it. That seems to be a big thing too, just because you can't shoot at it unless you can see it. Unless you're Tau or whoever else. Yeah. Okay, army builds. I'm going to cover these. You see the Sky Blight, Swarm List, Deep Strike List, and Balance. I put up some army lists earlier, but I'm going to go a little bit farther into detail with them. Like I said at the beginning of the unit by unit review, or what I thought was good from each of the sections, you have to pick from that list and put them into, you don't have to pick only from that list, but when you're looking at that list, they're only good in context of what else you take. Because if you take a Tyranid Prime in your Skyblight list, it's going to be a hindrance. If you take a Flyrant in your Swarm list, people are going to shoot that down really quick, and then you might not have any more Synapse. So things are only good in context of what else you take with Tyranids. All right, Skyblight. So obviously you take the Skyblight formation. You have to take 2 Harpies, but you get a Hive Crone. You have to take 3 units of Gargoyles, but they can hold objectives, and you can take a Flyrant. So that's your formation. Of course, you need to. So yeah, you got your Flyrant, 2 Hive Crones, or Harpies, 1 Hive Crone, and your 30 to 90 Gargoyles with Adrenal Glands, I would say. And then you got your minimum force organization chart requirements, max flyers. So for your headquarters choice, you take another Flyrant, so now you're up to 2 Flyrants. You take some units of, I would say, Gene Stealers to outflank, because you're going to have so much on the table. That's what I would do. Or, yeah, because you'd outflank them and try to contest or hold objectives at weird parts of the table. It kind of gives your opponent like I don't know where these guys are going. And if they're far enough away, only some of their army can actually engage Gene Stealers that are like in your deployment zone starting on turn 3 or whatever. So your standard list should look like 2, maybe 3 Flyrants if you're playing a bigger game and you've done that. You've committed that much to it, but probably just 2 Flyrants. I would say some Gene Stealers, 2 units, 4 units, just minimum. Unless you like to take Broodlords. I really like Broodlords. The Horrify power I think is really good, and it's just something else you get to play with. Other than just, I try not to spam things because it's just a boring game and it's less going on the table. Plus, it's like supporting fire almost. You pin the guys. It's like pinning fire. You're trying to pin people down, and even though you don't do any wounds, you just pin them. And then the Gargoyles, I'd say, since you're taking 3 units of 20 would be okay. And then your 2 Harpies, and try to fit in as many Hive Crones as you can on top of that, because Hive Crones are pretty good. So if you could get anywhere from probably 6 to 8 flying monstrous creatures, that'd be pretty good. And then you can get your Gene Stealers just to make your force organization chart work, and then Gargoyles. And the Gargoyles are just going up, tying down enemy units like your like Terminators, things that would really crush your Hive Tyrants in close combat, Wraith Knights, the stupid Wraith Guard with the flamethrowers that cause instant death. That unit was not necessary. There's a lot of crazy things, but that one unit was not necessary. Um, yeah, anything that would really just mess you up, you go in there, you tie it down, or you chase down the fast things, like any of the vehicles from Eldar, Dark Eldar, to put those down and get the guys out so that your other units can deal with them. Or if your flying monster creatures fly over, vector strike, or shoot, the gargoyles can charge what's inside and really just try to hide from shooting the next turn. But yeah, that's how that list works. You've got a wall of gargoyles with these flying monstrous creatures flying at pace with them because you can fly really slow, and use them as cover. Yeah, you're flying Hive Tyrant, but if you've got the one that's standing on the ground, the gargoyles in front of him can screen him, which is fun. And then yeah, you got your Gene Stealers just trying to sneak around and get. Even if you outflank and come in your deployment zone, just off the table edges, and get the objectives, you got to put your objectives close to the table edge for them so that they can, in cover, so that they can hide and hold an objective. But you can have late game taking objectives with that, which is cool. And your opponent won't see it coming either because they're trying to deal with all these gargoyles and flying monster creatures, and yeah, and you're standing there like the Wicked Witch, fly my pretties as they fly over, and yeah, it's good. That's probably the most competitive list right now, even though I think if you play flying monster creatures, you play demons. Swarm lists. You got your Tyranid Prime, probably just one with the Norn Crown, and be careful because Eldar. There's a guy in my shop that plays Eldar, and he's really good, but he snapshotted him out with they have that flyer that is an Exarch, and because he's an Exarch, he's a character, and he can take a thing that he snapshots on. Yeah, he just completely snapshotted my Tyranid Prime out of the formation one time. Because I did hide him in. I didn't put the 30-man. You need a 30-man unit of Gaunts here, though. You need that just to hide him. And then he can hold an objective because he's got 30 Gaunts around him. So, yeah, that's what you need. All the Gaunts need to be in front of him so that, he doesn't get picked out right away. Gene Stealers are really your combat blocks. They're going to run up with all the gargoyles and blow things up. The reason why I say the Wraith Guard with whatever those flamethrower things are, Strength 4, AP2. Yeah, I wrecked a Wave Serpent with my gargoyles, and he just got out and just flamed and killed all my Gene Stealers because I was all packed around the Wave Serpent and killed them all pretty easily. And yeah, I don't know why they thought that Strength 4, AP2 instant death flamers were necessary. Let's see, infiltrating lictors. They're good just for threat overload. I took, in the game that I was talking about, I took the Death Leaper with his 5 single lictors just to run around. It was a lot of fun. I really like that formation. Plus, it gives -1 leadership to everything within 12 inches of those lictors. And between that and Shadow of the Warp, psychic powers aren't getting off. People are going to be failing that Horrify power. People are going to be failing fear checks. It's good. It's really good. They'll be running away from you, and hopefully you can run them down with your initiative 6 lictors. And yeah, they're fun. That's a good formation too, the Assassin Brood. Venom Thropes to give everyone cover just to survive a couple turns. I think I took 1 Venom Thrope in that list just to hide him and try to give Shrouded for as long as possible because people were like committed. In the game that I was talking about, that he moved all his guys up to kill that Venom Thrope, which died horribly. But then on my turn, I could move up and charge all those things that had moved closer to kill that. So I ended up tying up his Warwalkers and assaulting some things. Because you're trying to do that. You're trying to balance their desire to get away from you with their desire to get closer and kill your linchpin units because now they're within assault range, and sacrificing your units to kill theirs. And then max target saturation. You just want as many things out there as possible. That's why the single lictors are good, because if they want to kill that lictor, they have to commit a whole unit to shooting at the lictor, and they're not shooting at everything else. And he might actually survive because he's got stealth and he can hide in terrain and stuff. But yeah, that lictor will be able to cause damage. Like Death Leaper went in and charged a bunch of those War Walkers, which have invulnerable saves now, which is so not needed. But he, because he was strength 6, he was wrecking them. Strength 6 rending can destroy anything, so they have to target them. But if they do that, they're ignoring everything else. So the swarm list, not a tournament list. I took it to this tournament and it took hours. I personally slowed the whole tournament down. It was terrible. So don't do that. That's my. You got to play the flying list. I think that's why people like it, is because it's less models. The deep strike list I'm about to talk about, the balance list. If you play swarms, you're going to have like 150 models on the table, and you're going to slow the tournament down. So don't do that to your buddies. That's what I learned from that tournament. Even though I personally like that one the best, and I think that it's more consistent than the others. Deep strike lists. So I took this to a tournament down at Metagames back in 5th edition, and me and another Tyranid guy went, and they're like, "Oh wow, it's so nice. We never get to see Tyranids, and thanks for bringing them, because no one around here plays them." And then we ended up winning the tournament with our Tyranids, and it was pretty funny. It was fun. I really enjoyed going down there. It's a big trip for us to go down there, but in Springfield, Missouri. But yeah, with the whole idea of the list, and in 5th edition it was different. You could really, I was just having, or was this when 6th edition came out? I think it was still 5th edition, because I had toughness 9 guys. Yeah, the whole idea was you had a Turvagon, some Gaunts, and some Hive Guard, just to hide behind the wall, my Aegis defense line with the comm relay, just to hide down the wall, hold down the fort, make people come in, because everybody's coming in trying to kill your units, because that's how Warhammer goes. The more you kill them, the more likely you are to win. Really, there's objectives and stuff, but really you're just trying to kill everything. So everybody would pull in, kind of spread out as they were coming closer, or at least giving me more space behind them. And then I would deep strike in on my units behind them, blowing up things for rear armor. Just from them spreading out, gave me more options. I would fly in off the table edge with my Flyrants, and it was good. But you've got the 2 Flyrants and the 3 Trigon Primes, and between that you have 24 Strength 6 shots that reroll to hit, and 36 Strength 5 shots at 18-inch range now. And yeah, it was pretty devastating the turn they came in. And the idea was you wanted to cripple them that turn, so that way you wouldn't have to worry about counterattacks, and it would just be like you're killing their mobility, so that way you had control of the table. Now you need minimum units for board presence just to get half on and half off. So single lictors, units of Gaunts, they're only 40 points now. Just to hide and try not to flee off the table. Gene Stealers, they infiltrate forward, so you can try to infiltrate into a good place. Really, you're just trying to live for 2 turns to come on the table. And then Rippers, I put them with a question mark. Rippers, they're 39 points for 3 of them. They're fearless. They feed, so they don't run away or whatever. The worst case scenario is that they eat each other, but they have 3 wounds each, and they're fearless, so they're not going to cause a break check and run away. So they're actually good little units because they're so easy to hide, because they're so small. You could actually hide them behind a wall. If the wall was just millimeters higher, you could hide them behind the wall. So if you put the wall up on a hill or something, you could easily hide them, or you could hide them and put the comm relay, and they can hold that comm relay. Even though they're swarms and can't hold objectives, they're within that comm relay. So yeah, you're just trying to get, really the magic number is 5 or 4, but with Gene Stealers, I like to infiltrate those to be my real objective holders later in the game. So with Lictors infiltrating and the Rippers, you want to get probably 7 units off the table. So 6 units on the table. So you got your 3 lictors and a couple units of rippers, or however it ends up working for you. Um, but yeah, the main fighting force is those flyers and Trigon primes. It's a lot of fun. It's neat. Again, I'm feeling like I'm playing demons though, because demons used to have to deep strike, so that's why I felt like as I was trying to get these things on, and they were just immensely powerful when they got there. But yeah, it's hit or miss. Like especially now that it's a 3+ rerollable instead of a 2+, it's hit or miss. Sometimes you could get them all on. Sometimes you don't get them all on. Statistically, you should get 1 out of every 9 should fail. But there's going to be games where both your Flyrants fail or whatever, and now you're just really bad. Of course, with deep strike lists, it's not bad to have units that are trickling on later throughout the game. You don't want to just blow your load all at once. You want to have, like the Gene Stealers, you want them to come on later, but you want the Flyrants to come on right away and stuff like that. That one is really key to get the First Blood and slay the Warlord, even though you're probably not going to get First Blood. Tyranids getting First Blood is really hard. Yeah. Unless you take big blobs of guys. All right, so the balanced approach, you're going to want things like Flyrants. This is like consistency, not a lot of risk, but not a lot of reward either. It's just like just a solid list. So you got Flyrants. They're strong, so you would want them in your balanced list. You'd probably want 1 Flyrant and 1 Tyranid Prime and a big blob of 30 warriors. Hive Guard, Zoanthropes might be better, but Hive Guards, they're good at taking out the things that kill you, which are Dark Eldar. There's vehicles. They can take out anything with a cover save. Yeah, they're good. And if you're shooting at flyers, Ballistic Skill 3 doesn't matter because you're going to be snapshotting. So they're good for taking out flyers. They ignore jinx saves, and yeah, I think they're pretty solid. And they're 55 points now. They used to be 50, but now they're 55. Termagants, like I said, to hide a Tyranid Prime in. Gene Stealers, you really want to have, like, I think 7's a good number. 5 is just a tad too few, but 7's a pretty good number to infiltrate or outflank and try to hold objectives and go on to objectives last turn or hide or whatever. 7 seems to be the best number, because that's 84 points for a little unit, little commando Gene Stealers. Tyranny Warriors, they're really good for holding stuff down. Depending on your synapse, I would add in Tyranny Warriors with any of the bio cannons to shoot from range. Gargoyles, they are your wall, your living wall. You shouldn't have to take an Aegis defense line anymore. You just take your Gargoyles, and they help with board control, like affecting where flyers can go. I've played games where flyers have completely had to skate around my whole herd in the middle because of where I put my Gargoyles. So they're a lot of fun. And then the Biovores, again, just a solid, like, there are some lists that if you take these, you can't, there's nothing you can do. Like, it's the difference between victory and defeat. I'm thinking of the Tau Fire Warrior, like, here's 50 Tau Fire Warriors with the Cadre Fire Blade, and they shoot 4 shots each at half range, and when you assault, it's going to be hundreds and hundreds of shots that you're going to have to wade through. Strength 5, so anything that hits is just going to be killing guys, and so bad. 3 Biovores, a unit of 3 Biovores would destroy it. Like, you would just sit there and wait until they're down to 15 Fire Warriors after a couple turns and just go in. Any Imperial Guard lists, any Orc lists, you could just bombard one flank and then focus all of your other guys. I mean, there are just some builds that Biovores will save you. So if you take 3 of them in a unit, and then the big guns never tire, they can score, and they can move and shoot and stuff, and they're good. I have 3, and they're really neat, I think. So, especially now that if you miss, the spore mines can assault and then blow up again. So they're good. I like them. All right, looking to the future, I think I'm over an hour into this at this point, so a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. But you know what? I think this is good. I think people will skip around and find the points that they want to listen to, maybe paint while they listen. So if you're still listening, that's thank you. I appreciate you listening to my ranting and raving. But yeah, so looking to the future, new edition. I don't want to say we're bad off. I mean, the book is the way it is with formations. It gets a little bit better, but I still really like playing the Tyranids. The new edition, there are some things that they talked about, like charging through cover, giving you -2 initiative. That would be pretty nice because then Power Fist wouldn't be striking before us. Our initiative 6 stuff will be, striking initiative 4. I mean, that's Simon with a lot of, and that was the thing, is like you'd charge in against Tau in cover, and your Gene Stealers would be striking last, and the Tau would somehow, because they have better armor saves, would actually beat you somehow. That happened to me a lot. I have a buddy who plays Tau, and he likes to assault people with his Tau just because he's playing for fun, not to slay everybody. But yeah, I'd always lose combats to his Tau. So yeah, so I mean that'll help out. That'll help us out quite a bit. I don't know how, if they're going to do the assault, was it sweeping advance, where you consolidate into other close combats. When that used to exist, my Imperial Guard buddy would never. He always lost. He always, because my Hormagaunts, they were beasts. So they could charge ridiculously far, and then they would, because they could charge 12 inches, and so I'd move 6. Run and then assault, and so he wouldn't even be able to shoot at me, and then I was in close combat with them, and I could consolidate from unit to unit, and it was I don't know, it just really unbalanced the game. So hopefully they can figure that out, make it balanced, tone down shooting a little bit, make the game a little, and with the new objectives, hopefully make it not so much about, okay, I could try to hold the objectives, but really I'm just going to table you and win all the same. So hopefully they can tone that down. They're talking about new psychic phases. We have a lot of psychers. We can take psychers in pretty much every slot, except for fast attack. Yeah, and heavy. But troops, elites, headquarters, all kinds of psychers. So we could have potentially huge psychic phases and really shut down everybody, which would help against Eldar. So that way guide impressions wouldn't be everywhere, because their one psyker would generate like D6 plus his level or something, warp tokens, but we would have like flying hive tyrants. They would each be just as powerful as him, and you could have the zoanthropes, which would generate 2, if it's the way I've heard it. And then your one Farseer isn't going to be able to cast Guide and Fortune like he wants, because we can just dispel it with our. It's basically going to be like fantasy, I think. That would be really nice. That would really tone down all the powers and make our powers better, because ours would go off more likely than not. And then Shadows in the Warp, I don't know how they're going to fix that, but -3 to your Psychers might have something to do with it. I don't know. Or maybe they'll just be -3 leadership, which is not terrible. It just doesn't prevent psychic powers anymore. But that's a positive I see, is the new psychic phase. Demonology, I'm sure that's something that we're not going to get, but that's where you're like sacrificing your units to summon demons. So like Space Marines could like change into demons, Chaos Space Marines, or maybe everyone. Maybe everyone with a Psyker can do this. Maybe Eldar can summon demons from their units, and maybe, I don't know. But I think we're really good at taking down demons, honestly. Especially if they're going to be spawning the troop choices or the big guys. The big guys you take down with gargoyles, and the little guys you take down with either more little guys or your big monstrous creatures. So I think that'll be okay. And then they talk about the 3 different kinds of armies. You can have unbound armies, forged armies, battle forged armies, and formations. Unbound is like you can just take whatever you have. Forged, battle forged, so you get little like reroll your warlord trait, or all of your like the Skyblight formation. You can't be contested unless they have the same rule you do. So against another battle forged army, you can contest each other, but like an unbound army couldn't contest your units when they take objectives, which is nice because like, oh, I'm still trying to play the game. You're just trying to table me. Again, I want it to be a game. I don't want it to be let's just roll dice and kill each other off no matter what the mission is. So there's that. And then the formations, if you have formations, I guess that's a different category. But maybe you won't need a force organization chart anymore, which might be nice for us just because we have so many formations. I don't know. I think that this will be good for us because ultimately we're already only allowed to play battle forged armies, especially for tournaments that don't allow formations. Everybody else is playing unbound already. People already have, I'll spit out 120 points to get my cheapest headquarters and my 2 cheapest troop choices, and then I'll have like maxed out Riptides or maxed out Wave Serpents or maxed out whatever. People are already playing unbound armies, except for Tyranids because we're not allowed to. So really, it's just gonna help us. It's gonna give us benefits. They won't have to take the minimum troop choices anymore or the headquarters. They can just take whatever. But ultimately, that's a very small cost. You see what I'm saying? They might be able to get 1 more Riptide or 1 more Wave Serpent. I don't think they're going to be allowed to just take Wave Serpents. I think you actually have to take a troop choice for the Wave Serpent to drive around. You can't just take the Wave Serpent. Hopefully that's how it is anyway. Or 10 Demon Princes in a 3,000 point army or whatever. But ultimately, we're going to, which that's going to be nasty with the new Psychic Phase too, because if they're all level 4s and stuff like that. But I don't think people want to play armies like that. I think people want to play more balanced armies, and I think Tyranids will be okay because now we can do the same thing. We can have, in a 2,600 point army, we can have, is it 2,600? 260 points for a Flyrant. Let's say 25,000 points, you could have 10, 240 point Flyrants. So we can do the same thing. I don't really want to buy 10 Flyrants, but I can take in Unbound. I could take all 13 of my lictors as single lictors. I mean, that would be fun for me. I think I wouldn't have to worry so much about. I wouldn't have to worry so much, about really anything. I could take all the models that I have because I have a huge number of guys on the tape on my shelf. So I won't get the bonuses, but I don't know. I'm optimistic about it. I think tournaments are going to overreact like they tend to do and say this is a Battle Forged only tournament, and then that's just all the tournaments are going to be that way. But just to prevent the one guy from bringing 10, well, you can't. Your flyers. You can already take 10 flyers, 10 Storm Talons with one of the Space Marine formations, and just fly around and kill everything. But to prevent that, I think everybody's just going to go Battle Forged. So everything Unbound that you're hearing, except for all the Demon Princes flying around or something, you can pretty much do already. And anything that, even in that example with you can just only take Demon Princes, you can already do that. It's just you got to take 2 troop choices, which it probably isn't enough to even get you another Demon Prince. Honestly, you might be able to get 5 in an 1850 game, but I'm not worried about it so much. But we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for watching. And if you're still listening, I think that at least warrants a like, just to like, to say that you listened to the whole thing, so I could say, wow, there was actually one person who watched the whole thing. So anyway, thank you for your time. If there's anything else you'd like to hear about Tyranids or um, whatever else, please feel free to comment. June 14th, I'm looking at going to a Warhammer tournament. It's still up in the air, but it's just going to be a team tournament for fantasy. I'll be taking my Lizardmen, and you randomly get paired up with people between each game. So I'm curious to see how it goes, but it should be some interesting combos. So anyway, like, subscribe, comment, all the good jazz, and I'll see you next time.